of the sunny. Looking back, it was all needed. The problems, the pain, the trauma, the grieving. You are now tuned in to the prisoner to painter. Prisoner to painter. Hard work, dedication. Rainy days, inspiration. Prisoner to painter.
And now, a word from your local Pope dealer.
And my dad, he does, ghost hunting and paranormal investigating. Cool. So every once in a while, we'll cross promote. Like, I've done a couple paranormal investigations with him, and he'll be like, tonight I'm going ghost hunting with my son. So we got ghost hunting and pro wrestling.
Nice.
And we've gone to a couple places, like we've gone to Saginaw, stuff like that.
Oh.
I've also gotten a couple invites. Like my dad reached out and got more in touch with being able to talk to spirits, and a guy who signed Tech Nine's label Prozac, his music and stuff too. My dad's actually been in conversation with him about possibly working together in the future too.
Nice. So we just ended up making it live. I know I'm not great at this, but so welcome to the Prisoner to Painter podcast. I'm Nathan McDermott. Katie is not joining us today, but today joining us, Kidd Cobain, professional wrestler, factory worker, while he's professional wrestling. I'm excited to hear your story, man. Just right out the gate.
Thank you for having me. It's good to see that people nearby, because a lot of my work has been outside of Jackson in the Ohio-based area, but it's nice to see that people around the community and stuff are taking an interest too.
Yeah.
Especially the way that you reached out to me. When you reached out to me, it was initially about sobriety and stuff, which, by the way, as of yesterday, 4 months and a week.
Congratulations. Seriously. Cheers with the sweet tea. Congratulations, man. I just hit, I see, when I first got sober, I seen you, I don't know how to word this. So you were just getting sober, and then you went back to drinking, and I say that it doesn't matter, because like for me to get sober, it took me 8 years. Like and I finally got it, finally stuck. So
yeah, for me, before this, I did do a little stint of sobriety, and the funny thing, a lot of people say you remember your first. I remember the last drink I had when I did the first stretch of sobriety. It was I was gifted a bottle of wine before I decided to do it. And first time I was just kind of dabbling with it, like, let's see what I do with my time and stuff like that. I had like half a bottle. So before I made the decision, my last drink was a glass of Merlot. And shortly after work, about like 4:30-ish. And to help me remember giving up this time, I made sure it was a special day. My father, who's also been my practice partner in not only pro wrestling, but he's also been my practice partner for if we had an odd amount of kids in high school wrestling. His 50th birthday actually was the last time I had a drink. I bought everybody a drink, and everybody was kind of like, well, why are you doing this? Why are you being so generous and stuff? A couple people are drinking, so they were just like, But everybody else was like, why are you doing this? And I'm like, I want all you guys to be there to commemorate. And my last drink was a cherry Jello shot at 1:30 on New Year's Day. I said, "Happy birthday, Dad!" Toasted, and have not touched anything since. I don't even touch cough syrup, just because there's always going to be someone who would be out there like, well, technically you had that cough, but I don't have that. Every once in a while on Monday, they have these ones where it's like 0.0 because I found out, I like the taste, and being around the guys, more often than not, we'll be like, cheers. So my thing now, closest thing to drinking is if I'm watching like Raw or something, I have like 1 or 2 non-alcoholics with my little brother who we actually are both Gemini. He was born 2 years and a day after me. He's one of my biggest fans, got cerebral palsy. Every time he goes to a show and gets excited, you can see him do that. Looks like, kind of looks like Mr. Burns if he was on sugar packets.
Hey, so one of the things that I'm most happy about this podcast is, so Raw SmackDown kind of does, I do it live to show that stuff happens, like nothing's perfect. So like TV, when you watch TV, it's cuts and retakes. And
Oh yeah, that was one of the biggest things about ECW back in the day, and why they have still to this day such a big cult following. Like one of the guys who helped bring me up in the original Sheiks was Sabu, and with him being a little older, he didn't really teach us too much as far as like running the ropes and stuff. But with him being the old grizzled vet, he kind of got in that grind them tough mentality to where now if we get hurt, we're just like. Just rub some dirt on it, that kind of stuff.
So the one reason I brought that up, because stuff's not perfect, I forgot to turn off my dryer. 1 second. I'm like, I hear the noise, dude. If I hear it, my guess is that the mics are picking it up. So I'm like, so my bad about that. Dude, so here, so clearly, we're going to talk mostly about, not mostly, but I'm going to get into wrestling. But one of the huge things that I like to do here is I like starting in childhood, working my way where you are now, because I feel like if you learn your childhood, or the audience learns your childhood, then I guess it makes a success story, or makes what you're doing, it gives them perspective as to why. Because one of my big questions, since we already talked about it, I guess I'll still ask it, and then we'll go back to childhood. How is it wrestling going from drinking to not drinking? Like that was one of my biggest questions I had for you.
One of the biggest things, and I haven't in 2025, I haven't had too many shows. I've had a couple here and there, but another thing is the last show I did for a company in Michigan, I was challenging for a heavyweight title. I got jumped at the end. I was nursing an injury, and right about then. That was also another reason why I wanted to give that up. That way I could come back bigger, better, stronger than ever. Everybody, surprisingly, though, has been very supportive. There was a couple people, like my buddy Gio Bronco, is a big black cowboy. We travel around a lot together. Me and him have been down to Arkansas. We've been down south. We've been around Detroit. Cool. There's a couple times, like I know... Granted, I did buy a lot of the alcohol back then. There was a couple times where, looking back at it now after seeing how little the stuff cost and how much I was buying, I'm like, ooh, I had to have been bad, because I'd look at my wallet at the end of some nights and I'd be like, there was an extra $100 bill in there before I went to bed. Yeah. And some liquor is expensive, but you get like a fifth of certain whiskeys for like $20-$30, and I'm like, God, how much did I drink? And then after that, I'm like, how generous was I? Yeah. How many friends did I make? How many enemies did I make? Yeah. Especially if you're in a different city, because with all the traveling stuff, like they might not see me for a while, but some people, elephant never forgets. And I kind of got a particular face, like beard, this. I got certain tattoos, and they identify you with tattoos. If you're running from the law, all they got to do is like. For example, I have a tattoo of Bender from Futurama. There's not that many people that have a tattoo of Bender. Not too many people have the dead man's hand tattooed from Western folklore, and that right there, that's also a buddy of mine from Jackson, Body Rotten Jackson from Sick May Productions. Okay. So going back to that, I got a lot of very identifiable, and I'm just like. I need to get my shit together. Man, well, all right. So clearly I am still learning and trying to do better at the podcast, just like anything, what you can do better in life. So I write down all these questions, and I've been noticing that the more I look at my notebook, the more it's like an interview, more than conversational. So if you could try to ignore that I have this, clearly you're not going to ignore it. But I've been saying that because I don't want everybody to think I'm going to go point by point by point. It's just in case I get to stuttering or I get anxious or I forget, then I know I have something to look at. That's pretty much why I do it. So how would you say your childhood was overall? Overall, it wasn't too bad. Traveling and stuff, I didn't have the easiest, but by means, I did not have the freaking worst. Some of my brothers in high school, my mom and dad, we were both very active. Like sometimes we make sandwiches for the meats and stuff. And some of them looked at my mom and dad. One of my buddies actually who works out in Michigan Center named Yanni. We call him Baby Bear because he's the smallest one. He calls my mom, mom, calls my dad, dad. Whenever they see him, still comes up and hug. They were both very active, but again, they worked in factories a lot. Sometimes 8, 10, 12-hour shifts, and then having kids. And I got another brother, the one who I was telling you earlier, who's 2 years and a day younger than me.
Okay.
When we were younger, when he was being born, he died in the womb. He had I think it was stroke due to a complication from birth. I think the umbilical cord was being tied around there. And I want to say the first couple months he spent up in U of M. So first couple months of my baby brother being born was kind of and the first 2 years, because my parents had their babies like back to back to back. I'm 28, my younger brother's 27, and then we got another one, 26. So, it was kind of convenient because, as soon as I outgrew something, they'd be like, here,
Right down
here,
the
Junior, here, Austin. I think my dad did that and was smart.
Yeah.
That's neither here nor there. He definitely has his moments, natural blonde and whatnot.
So, man, that's awesome. So just going. So you kind of already answered what mom and dad does for work, factories. Dude, nothing wrong there. My dad worked in factories, so we had money, not like a crazy amount, but we never needed for nothing.
Yeah, not like standard poverty level, but like lower middle class. Like we don't need donations, but we gotta work really hard for what we have. Like right now, I work my 40 hours, and it's enough to pay my bills. And every once in a while, if I'm out and about with my mom, I'll treat her and stuff like that. She'll still try and pull that, what do you want? And I'm like, I'm almost 30. You've wiped my butt for years. You've done this and that. Like, let me buy you Starbucks. Let me buy you dinner. What's the catch? You wiped my ass.
That's the catch.
Yeah, like you put up with me. You drove me to all the tournaments. She's even gone to certain pro wrestling shows and stuff too.
Cool.
They've actually, a couple of my, and like they're so active. Like sometimes I'll go there and I'll hug the promoters, and before they even ask me, they'll be like, how's your mom? Where's your mom? Where's your dad? And like my mom and dad, they'll even talk to them because they were active in high school wrestling and stuff. Like they'll message like in Ohio, we got a couple guys, Josh, Joe, Kenny, down for a company called Rubber City Wrestling.
Okay.
And sometimes we'll all get together, go to like Waffle House, Denny's, Applebee's, stuff like that.
Uh-huh.
Just like he did in high school, that man picked up on the dad uncle role, and he'll check in on them. Like when they've had kids, he'll be like, hey, how is so and so doing? And he just never turns it off, whether he's at work. He's a little more grumpier at work. But 10 hours of being yelled, and then you got GM breathing down your neck and stuff too.
Man, there's one thing you just said. Fuck, it should have slipped my mind. Oh yeah. So at the end of every episode, I give a gift card. So this week, I more tailored it because it's Mother's Day. I more tailored it to your mom than you, but maybe you'll get some use out of it. So that made me happy. You think they like treating your mom because fuck that happened.
I was a hardcore mama's boy growing up. As I got older with football and wrestling, I kind of leaned more towards the dad. I'm still a mama's boy to an extent. We have our coffee dates when we go shopping.
Cool.
Plus, I grew up around my mom a lot. Sometimes I pamper myself. I'll put on a face mask, watch Golden Girls, but that's neither here nor there.
I love it, dude.
And don't tell anybody. Thank you for being a friend.
Yeah. What is your least favorite and your favorite memory of childhood?
Least favorite, as in like traumatizing or.
Well, so I leave it as a broad statement. So whatever you're comfortable answering, and that's why I leave it like that. So yes, that is the route that I was taking. But some people don't have trauma. Some people don't want to talk about it, et cetera, et cetera. So.
One incident that sticks out the most to me. When we were younger, my younger brother, we were housing my aunt and one of my cousins at the time, and there's no judgment here. Like Bernie Mac said before, we all got fucked up family. It might be your sister, it might be your aunt, but one day we were housing them. They were down on their luck, and had no place to stay, et cetera, et cetera. And I went to go stay at my other aunt's house at the time. She lived out in Napoleon, and at the time, me and this cousin, we were pretty close. He was a little older than me. We were like me, him, and my other cousin Kenzie. We were like the three oldest of my grandma's kids on the side. So we had that older big brother, big sister complex and stuff. And this is where I kind of got like my survivor's guilt, or I could have been there type thing. I went there, and the night that I stayed there, I stayed home for like a couple of weeks because something was just seemed off, and I ended up going to my aunt's house that night. I come back the next day, and my cousin was gone. And then I asked everybody what happened. They pulled me aside, and they told me that one of my cousins had molested my younger brother. And ever since that, because again, it happened the one day out of that weekend, and I hadn't been anywhere. I pretty much was a homebody playing my Xbox, my GameCube. I had a Dreamcast at the time. We lived over by a train station. We had like a TV in every room, attic, basement, game station here, game station here. So I was very hardcore homebody, and it just kind of stuck with me. I was like, man, the one time I leave, and I was always the big brother, like growing up with my other brother TJ. He was, this was before Marvel and all nerdcore culture became popular, when you'd still get like bullied and picked on and stuff.
Made fun of.
I always, I'd always stick up for him, even times when he didn't know it, and I still do to this time, because he's to the same way like that, but into like the anime, otaku, nerd culture stuff. But that the one is kind of that stuck to me the most, and I ended up going into psychotherapy after it, because I ended up seeing red, and I would just like see visions. I blacked out one time, just saw me with a pool of like blood, beating someone with a spoon, and ended up going to psychotherapy for a few years because of that. And right around then, when I started getting into varsity and had my outlets there, learned to channel that. And it's something that I've slowed, just like with the whole alcohol thing, you just day by day. And, I reassure them every once in a while, like, hey, as long as I'm around, that stuff ain't never going to happen to you again. And since then, we have had like a really tight knit thing. Like, there's been times when I was drinking where he'd look at me, almost like tuck me in, stuff like that. So,
well, I'm sure everybody has told you this, and it won't mean much coming from me. But clearly, it's not your fault. I'm sure you've heard this, and so I'm just going to reiterate. And like I said, I know it don't mean much coming from me, but I could only imagine the feelings. Yeah, I can only imagine. So,
oh yeah, especially when it comes from you don't expect it to come from family, and more often than not, that's where it does come from. Especially if you watch, Jerry Springer, Maury, anything like that. That's a good chunk of it, and it keeps happening because it brings drama and stuff like that. But again, it not only did it give me like the survivor, the guilt type thing, it also kind of fucked with me, because I'm just like, well, okay, that was from family. Who all do I really know who to trust, especially in the entertainment industry, because a family can do that to you. Who's to say someone who's supposed to be your boy doesn't, jip you out of something because you might owe $20 for gas?
Yep, dude, and it's crazy because borrowing $20 to people, like, now my mentality is I pay $20 to find out you're not a friend. When it used to be, people rip you off for anything. $10, it's like, fuck you. At that point, everyone just gave you $10 to keep you as a friend. At that point, like, not a bit. But okay, well, man, I thank you for sharing that. Really, thank you, because a lot of men, I'm not even gonna say it like that. A lot of men have a problem talking about their emotions, and I'm trying to break that stigma as well here. So thank you for sharing that.
I'm trying to do all sorts of things to break stigmas. I mean, I got long hair. I paint nails. I do a lot of stuff for women. I've also before I got more heavily into pro wrestling, I also used to coach wrestling and stuff, and a lot of the ones I teach were like the younger girls and stuff, because I had a lot of girls on my dad's mom's side, and I was just like, if I can teach them how to defend themselves, I mean, they're not paying anything, so free self-defense, sure, why not? Because again, this is on TV all the time, and if I can help someone defend themselves, and it takes me 5 minutes to, at most, an hour or two of class, by all means. that lady might know how to defend herself now because someone might be up a little high. She knows how to get low, go for the legs, crawl up the body, hit them a couple times, and run.
Hey man, that's there was a little girl that was she was interviewed on TV. A guy in New York pulled her into a cab and tried to rape her. The kid got away, stuck flying in between the seat, ran, told the cops that, hey man, this guy tried raping me. A little 8-year-old, hey man, this guy tried raping me. I was flying in between his seat. The cops said, where did you learn that from? The fucking kid said Law and Order, Special Victims Unit. I learned it from Olivia. I'm like, these kids pick up on shit like that. So that's very nice of you to do. I mean, clearly that you're doing more active helping than watching TV, but that's nice, man. That's very nice of you. So I go from childhood to school, and if there's ever anything you don't want to answer, we can move right past it. But I try to go more harder questions and the easier ones. So what kind of pets did you have?
Growing up, we had a couple dogs here and there. We had one for a good more than a decade. It's a good old black lab named Seven. We got him from Cascades and stuff.
Named Seven, you said?
Yep.
Okay.
He was just named Seven. We don't know why. We didn't know if that was like the previous owner's lucky number or what it was, but named Seven. At the time, we lived over by the train station on Plymouth, and little chunky black lab. You wouldn't think much. He didn't really do much. We buy him toys, wouldn't fetch or anything like that, but we had groundhogs over there, and he'd dart after the groundhog, and he'd catch them. Every once in a while, we'd let him out because we had a fenced-in yard. Every once in a while, we'd let him out, and he'd bring it back. We'd look outside. He'd put his hand right there, and the groundhog, I'm like, oh, great. Live-action Animal Planet.
Yeah.
But we had that. We've had a couple cats here and there. Most of your traditional American pets. We did towards the end of my junior and senior year, we moved out to Grass Lake. My dad took over on some property for his buddy.
Nice.
And at the time, we were still going to Jackson High. We'd get up really early because, again, Mom and Dad worked. We'd go up to J High, hang with a few friends for a while. Before Bell got up there, we'd be there before, like, everybody. There's worse stuff that teenagers could have been doing that early in the morning. We're at school. We have our book bags. We have our supplies. We weren't really up to anything. But when we lived out there, that's when we kind of branched away from the norm of pets. We had about 5 acres out by, so when you go to Portage, you go on to, I believe it's Race Road, and you take that go about halfway down Race Road, there's these little guardrails, and it was a dirt road. Mm-hmm. As soon as you turn off Race, it's called Glen Road. It was like the first house there, had about 5 acres. When we moved out there, we got a little chicken coop. Nice. We started getting some chickens, and then we had a couple of ducks. Cool. You want to take a guess at what the names were? Real famous duck characters. You probably get 1 or 2 of them right off rip.
Scrooge McDuck?
Nope. Right close.
Okay. A Mighty Duck?
Nope. Big insurance.
Oh, fuck. Aflac.
Yep. Aflac was our pet duck. Aflac actually got us in trouble with the neighbors because a couple times since we lived out there, we let the duck and we let the dog wander around. We had a pit bull named Nike at the time. Okay. Nike was one of those derpy kind of pit bulls where not the brightest, but his heart was in the right place. Yeah. And Nike would nip at the duck, and the duck would like nip by our ear. And every once in a while, people would think that our duck and our pit bull were fighting. We'd go outside and we're just like, oh no, our duck and our dog play tag. They look over and you see a duck go. But we had a duck named Aflac and Donald.
Okay, that would have been the easiest.
And then we also had a couple of chickens. They were free range and stuff. We let them wander around, and we would even let them inside the house because we had a wood burning stove and stuff too. So every once in a while, we'd be sitting there watching TV, look over. There'd be a duck just sitting by the wood burning stove, watching Family Feud with us, looking all redneck and country as hell.
Dude, that's cool though, man. So going into school now, so clearly you said you moved from like Jackson area to Grass Lake. Before I ask the question of how is it being a kid moving from school to school, my question before that is going to be, were you always into wrestling? Because clearly we're going, like that's where we're going into your story. So were you always into wrestling?
Yeah, I always was. Growing up, my dad was big, and because I was born in '96,
Okay.
that was like right around Attitude Era.
Yeah.
When I was younger, WWE had these like little VHS tapes. My earliest memory, back when they had the Teletubbies and all that in the '90s, you had these body pillows, and that used to be my little practice dummy. So you'd go over to, if you go over to my mom and dad's house from like '99 up to mid 2000s, you might see little chunky me jumping off the couch. I used to be a big fan of the Hardy Boys, Chris Benoit, and all that. So me being chunky and a little stubborn, I'd be like, I think the leg dropping stuff from the Hardy Boys might be why I'm that short, because I'm the oldest and I am only 5'8". These boots are working wonders.
Dude, I had a wrestling partner. It was a panda stuffed animal. The thing was huge. It was like the size of a person. So, just real quick, WCW, WWE, or TNA?
Now are we talking early WCW, late WCW? Because I'm a history buff. If we're going early WCW, I have to go early WCW, because early WCW, you also had Ron Simmons, you had Vader and stuff like that. Early '90s WWE was kind of doing I mean, I think the early '90s is when they were really beating them in there. TNA, though, I kind of have, some TNA talent has a special place in my heart, because Sabu's worked there, and Shane Douglas has worked there. I've worked on cards with him and stuff too. I've also been to shows where Shark Boy has been. So there's a lot of TNA talent where, like, some of them went on the early stuff. And it's just like, I might have to pick that just because there's a couple of my homies. But if we're going nostalgia, I'd have to go WCW. If I'm going for, biasness, and because I worked a couple of people, done seminar stuff, I'd probably have to go TNA on that.
Dude, I read something. I didn't think it was true. Kurt Angle wrestled longer in TNA than he did in WWE. I didn't know that. I found it hard to believe, because I remember growing up with him WWE. Like, I remember Kurt Angle. Come to find out, he wrestled in TNA longer. And then I didn't know Macho Man wrestled in TNA before he died. So it's like the TNA had some talent, man. That I didn't know about. Like I didn't know Macho Man ever wrestled for TNA.
Oh yeah, he had I think his last match was a 6-man tag. Actually, one of the last people he worked with before he passed was actually Jeff Hardy and Jarrett.
No shit. See, Jeff Jarrett was cool, man. I liked him more as a wrestler than I did like his Eric Bischoff style. TNA. Okay, so going from actually, it's funny. So you did the opposite. So I grew up in Fowlerville, and then I moved to Jackson. So I moved like country to city. It sounds like you went from city school to country school, or did you always stay at JPS?
I always stayed at JPS because when I first started at J High, I did amateur wrestling in middle school and stuff too. But when I first started J High, our team captain was in my weight class, so I kind of got short end of the stick first year or two. So junior, senior year, that's when I got varsity, and when I was getting good matches. Like senior year, there was a couple times when it came down to me and my buddy Tony Anderson. They were just like, look, if you don't pin, we ain't going to win.
Fair enough.
And we were just like, okay, that's why going back to the whole going to school early. We lived out in Grass Lake, and we get dropped off a little early. We go there because my mom and dad were just like, well, we're not going to let you give up your varsity spot because you've been grinding your ass off for 2 years to get it. And
that's nice of them, man. That's nice of them. A lot of parents won't drive. Well, a lot of parents can't. But then on the reverse token, a lot of parents just wouldn't anyways. So that's nice of them.
Yeah, it's something that as I've gotten sober and as I've gotten older, you stop, you look, and you reflect. Because me and my dad, sometimes we butt heads where we are best friends, but sometimes, that case of where some people are too much alike, that they can be really good friends, but they spend too much time together, they butt heads. And
you described me about that. You described me about that too.
Like that's how we were when we were drinking too. Like sometimes we'd be like, "I love you, buddy," type, and then there'd be other times where, like, we had a really bad argument before New Year's. Still do not remember what started it. And that was another reason why I had to give it up, because like I said, a good fifth run you about 20, 40, depending on if you want nice stuff, $50. And I was doing that. And only thing I was getting out of it after a while was spending money. I'm feeling a little good. I'm waking up feeling like shit, but I slept good.
Yeah.
So it was like friggin' at the end of the night, you do some deduction and stuff. I'm like, that's a $40 dose of melatonin.
Yeah, literally, I just go buy melatonin at that point. Oh,
you do that math, and you're like, okay, I am being dumb.
Yeah. Sorry, I like kind of looking just see where we're at, but no. So you went to it looks like you stayed at JPF.
I did. While we're on this, I did go a little bit back and forth because my dad actually went down to Orlando to work on boats. He has a degree in marine mechanics. Cool. So in his free time when he's not working at the factory, he can also work on boats, shrink wrap, and do all that stuff too. Wow. We did go down to Florida, so we traveled a little bit back and forth between here and Florida. Mm-hmm. We did go down to Orlando, and at the time I was maybe not even 5 foot tall, but I was really chunky. Like frame wise, I looked like Danny DeVito, prepubescent years. And we had black top down in Orlando. Some days I get up to 140. I'm sitting there fat, just playing my game, keep looking outside like, I know there's a pool, but there's a risk for that.
Yeah. So I'm not going to say too much in school. I mean, clearly, because I want to hear like what's happening now. But I do want to ask a simple question. So you did sports in school, is what it sounds like, varsity football, wrestling. Are there any relationships worth mentioning? And did you attend prom?
I did attend prom. It was with my ex at the time, Ashley. Okay. There was a age gap. I was a senior. I believe she was a sophomore. Yeah, I was young and dumb and scared, and I broke it off before all that happened. Mm-hmm. Looking back at it now, if I wouldn't have been so scared, who the hell knows? But look, when I worked at Meijer, she actually was one of the people who'd come in from one of the vendors. I think it was like Aunt Millie. And as I got older, we actually sat down, talked. I told her, and, she told me, if you would have just been honest, who's to say where we could have been. But we've had relationships here and there. And as far as I know, she's in a relationship and doing pretty good. I think she's working 1 to 2 jobs and has a man, and I currently have a girl in my life, and she's actually she actually went with me to my last show in Ohio, Rubber City Wrestling. They have a thing on YouTube. I'm pretty sure if you follow me on Facebook like you do, you real easy to spot her, real pale, looks like she's wearing some of my clothes. Okay. So just look for a real pale chick wearing grunge-esque type clothing. But she actually helps put me in check every once in a while.
Needs that.
Yeah. Needs that. I'll be honest, I am, man. I get complacent in times. She doesn't drink either. She puts me in check. Every once in a while, I'll make a joke like, man, I need a beer. And she'll give me that look like, you need a what?
So, you said your mom would come to shows, or your family have supported you, and now you spoke of a woman or a girlfriend. Well, I don't want to use that word. A lady that's in your life comes to shows. Do you ever think they get afraid seeing you get not beat up, but abusing your body?
When I first started out, some of my exes, they would be kind of like that. They'd be like, well, I don't want to hear you complain about getting hurt and blah, blah, blah. The girl who I'm with now, my parents know her parents and stuff, so we kind of grew up knowing of each other and stuff. So she kind of knew what I was capable of. She watched me do, heard me and watched old matches back when I was doing the Polk Brothers thing. So she kind of knew, but when she saw me actually do that, and not only could she see the beating that I could take, so she kind of got more of a sense of security. Like, even if you can't whoop their ass, I know you can take that ass whooping. And I also, that day, she found out how pretty hard I hit, because from about right where I am to your laptop, I psyched out the dude. like I was gonna chop the shit out of them. I got like right here and went, boop. That little space, I don't know if it's because of working at the factory or all the times I chop buildings to try and scare the crackheads away from rolling cigarettes from me. But like I did that Bruce Lee like 2-inch punch with chops, and I still made dude bleed in like 2 spots on his chest. And I'm like, still got it.
You still got it. Oh yeah, man. Okay, so okay, so did you graduate?
I did. I do kind of come off as a little yes boss and derpy, but there's a method to my madness. I learned if you play dumb and you don't touch certain things, if you don't know how to operate that and your fingerprints are on it, can't get blamed for it. But growing up, I actually, most of my academic career, I had anywhere from a 3.2 to a 3.6.
Awesome.
And bear with me because this is going to kind of contradict it.
Yeah.
Going back to the whole football and wrestling thing, like I understood wrestling and all that. I understood you jump this side, cut here, grab, tuck, make sure you don't lock your hands that way. I understood all that. I did 2 years of football, and mind you, I played Madden, played NFL, NCAA. To this day, I still don't understand the X's and O's. Anytime I've gone in there, they'd be like, "You're this guy. You gotta hit that guy."
Yeah.
So eventually, I got really good. As long as you do that, I was on defense and special teams. Whenever they go for the extra point attempt, I got my letter for football, and I did 1 year JV, 1 year varsity, and then for wrestling, I have a couple years of varsity. Got my jacket there. It's somewhere between all the different denims and leathers. Varsity jacket got buried underneath the cosmetic stuff for pro wrestling. It's probably somewhere in my ripped Daisy Dukes that I got from an Afro Man concert.
Dude, so firstly, this is fun, so thank you, kid. So before we get into the wrestling career, I'm inching up on it. I seen you quit drinking, so I wanted to bring this and kind of merge it into it to understand. So when does alcohol become a problem? When does alcohol first become a problem? Because so like now we're getting out of high school in your story, and I know you quit drinking now that you're what, 26? So
when 28 actually.
Oh, 20. My bad, I'm 27.
All right.
Yeah. So when does drinking become a problem?
When it becomes a problem is when you slowly start to isolate, and that's what I was doing. And sometimes, again, we're men, we get complacent. Sometimes we don't realize it. That's why my tag team partner, couple of my buddies, sometimes we need to remind each other. And that's why I have the team that I have, because the people who are my sponsors and stuff, one of them is actually my tag team partner's club member down at the Disciples. And then my other buddy who's my sponsor was the guy who I was telling you about earlier, my buddy who's Nick's brother-in-law, that was the whole incident why I did have to give it up, because apparently I had guns pulled out on me when we were running from the cops. Again, I was in the passenger seat. I did everything that I could responsible, but after having that night alone, I probably had about like 2/5 and woke up in the hospital and did not remember anything. I told the nurses after I looked outside the window, I'm like, I'm gonna go to my grandma's house. Walked over, told my grandma what all happened, and just kind of awkwardly sat there in silence for a couple of minutes. Went outside, smoked a cigarette, and did some math in my head. I'm like, okay, that's gonna be a couple $100 doctor bill. Deduct the alcohol and stuff. I'm like, and one night I probably burned through about a good 2 or 3 paychecks worth of money because of all the repercussions and stuff. So it's just like, yeah, I know I can do it, but after a while, if people know you can do it, it's not really braggable anymore. So now I look at it like, as much as people knew I could party, now people are more on me about being proud, about being, sober and stuff. So now I kind of look at this as a continuous mission. Like, it might not ever have an end, but just like in life, you got to keep going. You got to keep pushing one day at a time. You might not get there. Like, no one's perfect, but you can get better and you can keep always improving. And the first couple weeks, it was really hard. Like, really hard to go to sleep.
Oh yeah.
And then I actually just recently, on Valentine's Day, no less, had my dog pass away and stuff.
I'm sorry.
That was my closest since I've gotten my second stint of sobriety, because I came back from my girlfriend's house, and normally, you know, pit bulls have that real, hey, dad's home type energy. I got in,
into your shit.
yeah, I had gotten home, and normally she's the kind of dog who try to get out, so you'd have to open the door, shut it real quick.
Yeah.
I shut the door, and I'm like, I didn't hear no pitter patter or nothing. I go in there, and she just lifts her head up off the couch, and I'm like, okay, that's weird. Normally Chanel's like up here trying to give me a hug, you know, give me kisses, lick my hand till I can't feel or anything. And I look at my brother and I'm like, she okay? He's like, yeah, she ate, drank a little bit earlier, but she's just been sleeping. I ended up staying at my house that whole weekend. She was just slowly deteriorating. I actually got her from a ex, and her previous owner was a truck driver. She was an outside dog, so you know we got her. There was always somebody at my house. There was always someone to, you know, play with her. We have a 1/4 acre yard. We could take her out for walks, stuff like that. When she was on her deathbed, we actually found out that she had a spine disease and stuff, and it was a complication from that and a ear infection. And because of the weather and all that, and them being booked out, couldn't get to it in time. And she ended up going on Valentine's Day about a week before her 4th birthday. But just like her dad, she was stubborn and a fighter, because we did some research. Most dogs with her conditions and stuff, most reports only live 6 months to 4 years, and she was a week out from 4 years.
Yeah, she's a fucking fighter. Dog, and man, dogs don't tell you they're hurting. They will wait till 2 days before death, and then you'll finally see that they're.
And it ate at me. Like, that's the only time I've used vacation time this year, was when my dog was dying. I called them at like 3 a.m. crying. I'm letting them know, like, hey, my dog has been needing help to go to the bathroom. And I'm very outgoing. Like, I've hung out with coworkers. They've been over to my place. They've been over to my dad's place. They've been down to the clubhouse. We've had cookouts, stuff like that. We've drank together when I drank. A couple of them vouched for me. They're like, no, if B's dog isn't, you know, giving him kisses, if his dog's just been on the couch for a day, there's something wrong with that dog. Yeah. And, you know, we tried getting in there, and again, I came this close. I actually reached out to my sponsor and said, yo, Travis, I almost had a moment of weakness. I luckily didn't, because I was around my brothers, and, you know, they held me tight, and I don't cry often. The last time prior to this when I actually cried, I think was probably when the Farhat sons passed, because they took us then, and those were like unspoken uncles. Yeah. And like she could tell I was hurting and stuff too. I stayed out between the threshold where the living room and the kitchen was, and I slept right there just in case, because she was like way out of it, almost rolled off the couch. And I woke up at like 12 o'clock because my chest started feeling a little warm. And even though she couldn't like hardly walk and like needed help standing up to pee, she still knew that I was hurting and needed her. She somehow got all the way down on the ground, crawled up, and backed up next to me. That's adorable, man.
So going from childhood and school, moving into where we are now, it sounds like you so you graduated. I'm sorry to hear about your dog. It sounds like all around your childhood was all right. I'm just trying to, you know, fill in the gap a little bit. So the huge reason I invited you on clearly is the wrestling thing and what your definition of success is. If you don't mind my asking, who was the biggest influence in your life, and where did the name Kidd Cobain come from?
Now, as far as biggest influence, do you mean biggest influence in like wrestling or life in general?
That one I meant life. And then the wrestling question comes a little bit.
Biggest influence in life in general. I kind of a toss up between because growing up, I had really bad asthma to the point to where, you know, the old-fashioned breathing machines where you had like a little vacuum hose like thing, you put it in there and had like a little nebulizer. I was doing that when I was younger, so I didn't think I'd really even be able to do sports. And we had these little asthma programs growing up where I learned about controlling your breathing, stuff like that, learning how to preserve your force, et cetera, et cetera. Football really helped preserve that because short burst, you're not going balls to the wall for like an hour straight. You're not just constantly running. My biggest source of inspiration probably would have to be one guy from WWE back in the day. Name was Zach Gowen. He made it there, and he had one leg.
Oh wow!
I was about like 6 or something years old when he came on, and sitting there with my little Lunchable and probably got cosmic brownie smeared on my face, or at the time, little Debbie cakes were like 25, 50 cents. So I'm just sitting there watching, I'm like, oh, if he can do that with one leg, I can do it. Yeah. And back to my brother, because he, every once in a while, you know, little brothers fight. My brother, who I told you, had all of those problems. And to this day, he still has like a problem with his one arm because of poor circulation and seizures. This arm, he can punch just like you and me, but this arm, it's kind of like this from poor circulation and seizures. Yeah. But there's a couple times I've called his bluff, and he hits just like he's got two good working hands. I'd have to say biggest inspirations are Zach Gowen, for Zach Gowen and him for the whole disabilities thing. And probably as far as being unique and all that, I've always had a thing for like the oddities, oddballs. So Gold Dust and Jeff Hardy. Right on. Okay. And Gold Dust really didn't get a lot of love and recognition until later on and stuff. But his character stuck out. I mean, it was weird at the time. It worked, and sometimes you would even forget his dad was a legend.
Hell, do you remember Cody Rhodes before he got really big, like he had his little Starbite or whatever? Stardust or nothing. Oh, shit, man. A lot of people don't remember him from that, which is probably better that way. But him what was it, Goldberg? He humped Goldberg's leg or some shit. Yeah. It's so famous, dude.
I mean, I wouldn't really want to remember a gimmick if I lost to Green Arrow.
Yeah. No shit.
Especially in my territory.
Yeah. Sorry. So going back, so what made you want to be an entertainer? Like what was the one thing that's like, I want to do this?
Probably the fact that growing up, I've said that I've had, you know, decent grades maintained. Sometimes I'd have a 3.0. I might let myself slip. I've failed. I think in high school, I failed only one class, and that was because they put me in an AP Part 2 class that I didn't take. And it was senior year. I already had my credits, so I'm like, what do I got to lose? Yeah. But, you know, as far as that, you know, maintaining good grades and being kind of chunky, I would look for something to get people to laugh because, you know, back in the 90s and 2000s, before all this cancel culture came around, you would still get bullied on and picked on for all that. So I kind of would use it to my advantage. And to this day, I still kind of do. I take from like Joan Rivers' self-deprecating comedy. And sometimes it works to where some, you know, people look at it like, man, if you're doing this about yourself, you really can't do much. And it's freaking funny.
It's good entertainment for sure.
And it's real cheap too. I mean, everybody's got something kind of like this one comedian on, I think he does YouTube. He also does Facebook. His name's like Ricky Bearswick. He's got a condition. Back in the day, people would just make fun of it. You know, you're a CRIPPLE. Not he rolls with it, and I kind of do the same thing, and that's kind of my shtick, and it's worked.
Right on, dude. So you kind of answered what kind of training background you have. So I'm not going to ask that. But I say it out loud because if there was something else you interject. So, what's your favorite part about performing for a live audience? And real quick before you answer that, I apologize. Am I using the right word? Not that I'm like a super PC type guy, but I did a little bit of research. It's sports entertainment, not wrestling, from what I understand. So, If performing isn't the right word, if you would correct me.
Oh no, you're good. I've been around new school people, old school people. As long as it's not outright disrespect and stuff. I mean, sometimes I tell people I do murder ballet. But for me, I think biggest thing is recreating stuff like when my dad first took me to my first show. I was about like 5, 6 years old. First show I remember seeing was Kevin Sullivan against some local guy at the Optimus Ice Arena down in Jackson. And
dude, I used to go there. That's cool.
Man. And being that I've done this for a couple of years now, and some promotions I've been there for a while, some of the people who come there, and they might have only been there a couple shows, they get invested into the character.
Yeah.
I have some people like from Owasso, I have some people from Ohio, I even have some people down in Arkansas, which I've only wrestled like once and stuff. They'll still reach out to me, and they look at some of their kids, and some of the people with special needs look at me and some of my other brothers and sisters like we're Superman or superheroes, and it's nice knowing that we can make them feel that way. Because if you don't know Kidd Cobain and you only know Brandon, you just think I'm just some guy that wakes up at 5 o'clock in the morning, clocks out at 3:30, and does the same thing up until Thursday.
Yeah. No, dude, I'm glad you said that because like and not even as a mentor, but like the Undertaker, like Stone Cold, or all these personas that I not looked up to, but their memories will be in my head till the day I die, and I bet you the memory of you and some of these kids watching you. So I like that answer.
Yeah,
I really like that answer, man.
That's why when I first started with the whole Kidd Cobain gimmick, I didn't have like my whole jorts, ripped jeans shtick. I was kind of experimenting a little with it. Now, every once in a while, like this coat thing, I'm working on putting patches on it and stuff. I also, a couple shows, if it's like big shows where I'm going for titles, stuff like that, bigger crowds, I'll incorporate, for example, Easter down in Arkansas where we have that show. Sometimes if I'm working babyface and I know I'm going to be working babyface, throw candy out to them. If it's a show, and I actually do this when I do big stadium, big shows. If it's a show and I see certain people and they don't have a lot of like merch, souvenirs and stuff, more often than not, I'll wear like a pair of glasses or something, and I'll do kind of like what Bret Hart did. I'll give them that, and we'll throw up the little devil horns, headbang a little bit. And I've been doing this one in Michigan for about 2 years. Last year, this one kid came up to me and was kind of looking at me like this, and he's like, "Do you remember me?" And I'm like, being as honest as I could, but also as nice as I could. I'm like, "I'm sorry, bub. I see a lot of faces. I've signed, a couple autographs, and I've also took a couple pictures here. Did I have an interaction with you earlier?" And he pulls out the glasses, throws up the devil horns, and starts going like that. And another thing with my gimmick, it's 2020. I come out and my stuff is grunge, which was based in like the 90s.
Yeah.
I've noticed a lot of times when I go to shows when my entrance music hits, kids will like me because of the character, and then I'll come out and then I see them bonding over music that me and my father grew up listening to in the car when he's on his way to his friend's house. We're going to Myers.
Man, that's awesome. That's awesome. How much of what we see is planned versus improvised?
To be honest, it can vary depending on where you go. In WWE, a lot of their stuff's leaked, and they have dirt sheets and stuff. There's been stuff where I want to say it was either The Rock and Triple H and Stone Cold, but a lot of times they'll work hours and hours to where they have their stuff down to a T.
Okay.
I pride myself in being able to call a lot of stuff out there. I've taken improv classes, and also with me being in there a while already, we have a couple different schools in Michigan and around the surrounding area. Sometimes more often than not, it hasn't been too often, but every once in a while when you're working a newer guy, they'll get so much called and they'll go over it over and over and over again. And then I can go over it like 1, 2, maybe 3 times, but if we go over it too much, I'm going to get stuff in my head, I'm going to forget, and something that's supposed to happen in the end, I'll be like, hey, this don't make sense.
Yeah.
like me, I try not to call or go over hardly anything. A lot of the bigger promotions and companies, they will go over it. Some people, they'll even message and go over stuff, sometimes hours, sometimes days. So again, it can vary from the production up to who you're working with and stuff too. Like younger me, before I did any of these seminars and stuff, I'd get happy feet. I'd be all over the place.
Yeah.
Now I've done this. Now when I work a headlock, I know, look for the camera.
Yeah. Okay. Smart. What are some of the biggest challenges that you face, like just currently or when you first started?
I think one of the biggest challenges when I first started was because in wrestling you work all different people, all different walks of life.
Yeah.
My first time working lucha, I ended up working with this guy named Temerario Dos. I think he's stationed out in Chicago now. A lot of his family comes from Mexico and stuff like that. Really cool people. We've given each other hugs, handshakes, stuff like that. But there's a language barrier because outside of hola, certain foods and other things.
Yeah.
Worked with this guy off and on shows for about 2-3 years.
Okay.
For the most part, I don't know hardly anything. He just said outside of certain spots and certain moves.
Yeah.
Luckily, we had one guy who's there who is Puerto Rican. His name was David Tower. He had to translate a lot of it, and he was speaking more Spanglish. Temerario was speaking like straight Spanish, and I'm sitting over there like,
help me out a little bit.
so I had to go out there and be very observant, like watch for the legs, watch for the arms, what's being thrown, what's about to be thrown.
Okay.
It's been a minute since I've gotten hit. I'm probably about to get hit, that kind of stuff.
Yeah. Okay, man. Hey, dude, you're this is informative, and I really like this. So thank you again. I probably overthink people. No, actually, I'm gonna take that back. I don't overthink people. I don't think you can be too thankful. How do you stay motivated and creative?
How I stay motivated more often than not is I'll look at a lot of people locally. Like for example, my buddy who I have his logo tattooed. When he first started out, he was writing raps in his little notebooks and stuff at WrestleMania parties before they had the network and stuff.
Yeah.
And he was reciting them to us at like the WrestleMania parties, and now he's done work with Twisted, Scum, a lot of big underground artists. Sometimes I look back at me, and back when I was like 14, we were doing backyard wrestling over at our Aunt Stacy's house on South Jackson. And I'm like, now we're doing it. We got a couple of stuff that's been on YouTube. We got some stuff that's been on like IW and Fight TV and stuff. It's like we came a long way. When me and my partner went and won our first tag team titles, going back to looking how far you came, they thought we were going to go in there and be bad guys. And me and my partner were looking outside of the crowd, see like half the crowd wearing Pope Brothers shirt and hats and stuff. And we're like, that ain't going to happen.
No.
They're like, why do you think? What do you mean it ain't going to happen? They're not going to buy it. We're in our hometown. They're wearing our merch. We could probably kick them in the nuts and they'd still probably be like, yeah, like them anyway. And that kind of stuff does happen. Look at Randy Orton right now. He's been doing it for so long. He could literally walk up, kick us in the balls right now, and he'd probably get a standing ovation.
Yeah, he'd be like, Randy,
do it again, please.
Oh shit. What is your most memorable experience so far, and what is your favorite match? If they're the same thing. If they're not the same thing, then that's two different questions.
Most memorable, I would probably have to say it was about 2 years, maybe going on 3 now, because it was around the time Relay for Life does a lot of stuff in Detroit. My buddy Harlem got a hold of me, told me to get a hold of this guy named Bubba who works for Metro in Detroit, and we were going to work each other, and they told me, hey, just so you know, it's not a non-paying gig. And I'm like, okay, what do you mean? They're like, it's a charity thing. It's for Relay for Life, and it's for breast cancer. And as soon as they said that, I was like, oh, okay, you don't got to explain no more, because my mom's mom and my dad's mom, they're both breast cancer survivors.
Oh, right on. I mean, they got it. Good for them that they beat it. That's awesome.
Just like the family, just like the dog and everything else, we're stubborn and we're fighters. We might not be the brightest, but fucking tough.
Right on, man. So,
And
yeah.
so I did that
Yeah.
as like the most memorable.
Cool.
Actually, for that, I worked pro bono. I also got to work with a buddy who I hadn't seen in a while because he does pro wrestling, but he's also working as a DJ. He goes by DJ Plato.
Okay.
And
That's funny.
he does a lot of work for like IBW, Rude Boy, ICP, stuff like that. We did a show and it was a Taylor street fight, and the loser got thrown in the Detroit River. So I got thrown in the Detroit River for breast cancer awareness.
Okay.
That's probably my most memorable.
That's cool. That's cool.
Probably my favorite. This was a match right before me and my partner Nick went down to RCW and won the titles there before we came dual champs. This is right before we had one in Ohio, one in Michigan, and I think like a couple weeks to a month or so later, we ended up having another one. So we had one right here, one right here, one right here. We ended up going down there working with this one guy by the name of Rogue. He used to tag team with a guy who went to WCW by the name of Queewee. And then another guy by the name of Kenny Hendricks. He still does pro wrestling, but he also does some minor acting. He was enhancement talent in WWF back in the 90s, so we got to challenge for #1 contendership for a title facing a former WCW guys tag team partner and a former WWF guy in the 90s.
Cool.
And then like a month later, we ended up going down there and winning that. So that was kind of cool because growing up, me and Nick, we were practice partners and we sometimes stayed on the south side and stuff. So we were always like really tight knit. We did lose contact of each other for a while, but then when we got contact back when we got into Parkside, we didn't really know who each other was. We were a little older, had testosterone, we butted heads, and we've actually gotten into like 2 or 3 fist fights at wrestling practice before. They sat us down, told us who we were, and we were like, hey, wait a minute, doesn't your mom work at Libra? Didn't your mom work at Libra? And then we're like, oh, small world.
Yeah, I know. That's funny. All right, cool, man. Well, so how has pardon me, I crack myself up sometimes. I was thinking to myself, I'm not going to keep doing that, and then I still continue to do it. But honestly, eventually the goal is to put like a whiteboard, and so nobody sees it. But we'll get there eventually. How has the industry changed since we started? If it has, good or bad?
When I first got in, if you want to be technical, when I first got my foot in the door, like tied to when I was doing ring crew and stuff like that. Again, this was before cancel culture, so sometimes depending on where you worked, and even in some towns still, like a lot of the corn-fed towns, sometimes they would be like still very towards like the LGBTQ community and stuff. Yeah. Like the last couple of years, it's like booming for you if you're in there. When I first got in, some places, if you did that, like how Adrian Adonis was and Adrian Street back in the day, if you had that like weird gimmick and it was kind of foreign stuff, they'd just be like, you automatically have to be the bad guy. Now it's kind of more open and more accepting of stuff. It's also more accepting of, the LGBT community and also, Muslims, all different stuff. Like there's a lot, like also in UFC, there's a lot of people coming from like Africa and stuff. There's one company actually in Africa who they were doing kind of like backyard style, and I think it was an AEW guy. I want to say it was Jericho because he is pretty generous with donations. I think he actually donated to get a ring over there, and I think they started.
Cool.
So and not only that, a lot of promotions are more. So I mean, it's kind of like the music industry. It's tough getting in. A lot of times you'll be working free. Sometimes it'll be a minute before you get money, but with how open and how many people are doing it, it's real easy to get work. If, like, for example, if you don't get booked here in Detroit, there's someone else that's running in like Lansing, or there might be this guy running in Cleveland. So you might have to spend, might have to put a little more gas in the tank, but there's always work. That's why so many of my brothers have been, a couple of them have actually guy who I worked in Metro in Detroit by the name of Gran Chuino. I believe he's actually in Japan right now.
Cool.
So there's a lot of work, and I think since I've started, it's really open, and I've noticed in the last couple of years, more people are doing seminars. So a lot of the vets, they're not really being the angry vets where you're kind of scared to go up there and ask for help or what you thought. They're more like, hey, come over here. I'll work with you for a couple hours and we'll critique this before you go out and perform.
Cool.
Like a big name that I've actually done a couple seminars with him, Michael Elgin.
Okay.
He sat down and, being a guy who's worked in Japan, when I first worked with him, I got real nervous and get there. And I'm like, this guy's about as tall as me. And then he, starts talking and you realize how down to earth he is. Like sometimes I still get like, we're meeting certain people, and I'm just like, he's just like me. Got a kid, he works a job, likes wrestling, stuff like that. So it's a lot more open. People are more willing to teach you and stuff. They're not the old school mentality where they just want to try and beat it out of you and see if you're tough enough. Where they're just like, hey, he's tough and dumb. He lived. He survived. That kind of stuff.
Man, thank you for sharing all this. What goes through your mind right before you step in front of an audience?
Right before I go out, I tend to think of some of my best performances, especially the ones where it's been in big crowds and I've gone out there and the crowds are really hot and you can get them to pop with an elbow drop or this. You just got to think how hot the crowd's going to be, and in your head you got to try and speak that into existence without seeing them speak, because then they're going to be like, man, what are you saying? Because nowadays everybody's like fake, stuff like that. That's why every once in a while I'll take guys out there and was that fake?
Yeah.
Was that fake? I mean, clearly I'm still protecting them and stuff, and I'm not going to go out there and just, kill my brothers and sisters and stuff. But, if you work strong style, their motto is hit hard in safe places. Like, because you can hear the thud.
Yeah. Well, scripted doesn't mean fake. Like, I mean, so scripted doesn't mean like that's. I'm not a wrestler, but I can only imagine falling even from 5 foot on your back is gonna fucking hurt. Like maybe not extremely bad, but still gotta hurt.
Oh, it does. I've done in homage to ECW when me and my partner, this is before we went for a title in Michigan, we worked with this one guy named the Soul Taker and Sabbath, really big heavy metal hair banging guy. We ended up doing a double table spot, and I got sent through both tables doomsday device like the old fashioned Road Warriors, and I went through one table and my ribs bounced off the other. Everyone thought that I died, and I'm like, no. I mean, it did hurt a little bit. I thought I farted.
That's funny, man. Characters. What is your character's motivation or goals?
As far as motivation and goals, like Kidd Cobain, he likes to hang out. He likes to listen to music. He likes to wrestle.
Yeah.
His head banging kind of transitions into headbutt, so it's a smooth transition into wrestling. I just stopped doing this, started grabbing people's heads. But I just like wrestling. When my music hits, I feel the energy kind of like some of my brothers that are in the music. When beat starts and something drops as soon as you go through the curtain, it's like.
Is there a backstory to your character that people might not know about? Like if there's something in your head that's your backstory, but you might not get to share it all the places you go.
So when I first started out, I was tag team. Me and my buddy Nick, we escaped from the Anderson building. Okay. Or two north if you're local.
Yeah, I like that.
Other places we'd be from your local psych ward. We just abandoned in the psych ward. They had a TV there. We watched wrestling. We practiced painting our faces like Warrior, Kabuki, all of that. And that was part of our therapy. Was we'd wrestle, we'd watch wrestling, paint each other's faces, work on character, all of that. But after my tag team partner was involved in a rather serious accident, he's still able to work, but he can't wrestle anymore, and he he has one child, he has another child on the way, so he can't really do that anymore. He has to focus on his kids. I get it. I respect him. We've had a lot of memories. I got to get gold with my brother and my best friend. The best to him, and Nick, love you. But after that, I kind of went into a little depression and a slump. I was still performing as Brutal Brandon, but then I slowly walked away, kind of hitchhiked, made my way over to California, where Kidd Cobain currently resides in Skid Row, and sat there down in the dumps for a while. After a while of realizing that I could survive and not wanting to do 18 in life, another Skid Row pun, just got my stuff together and did a lot of the same wrestling stuff that I was already doing. Took away certain aspects. I just listened to a lot of music. I wrestle a lot, and I incorporate a lot of music puns into my wrestling. Like one of Nirvana's biggest songs is called Heart Shaped Box, and kind of like what Goldust did in the Shattered Dreams, I open you up and I baseball slide and I kick you right in the heart shaped box.
Oh man, that's funny. How do you feel about the audience's reaction to your character?
A couple of people, especially local, a couple times people would recognize me from other angles and gimmicks, and sometimes they'd be like, kind of like how they were with other people in WWE, where they try out other gimmicks. They'd be like, "No, that's Brutal Brandon. Yeah. That's the other Pope brother and stuff." After a while, and working harder and showing people I'm not just a tag team guy anymore. Like I can do this shit on my own. After a while, and taking out a couple of the bad guys that were throwing in other people's sides, putting my life and body on the line, doing some dives that others wouldn't do, diving off of ropes, taking certain bumps. Eventually they started respecting it. But I will say it took about a good couple months before they realized, hey, that's not Brutal anymore, that's Kidd.
Right on. I like that. If you could do a promo with anybody in the world, not just local, who would it be?
We talking wrestling?
Yeah, I mean, preferably, but I mean, hell, I guess if you wanted to do a promo with like Donald Trump or whatever, but I was thinking more wrestling, yeah. If we're stuff promos too, really.
I mean, he's the only president that's in the Hall of Fame, so not very many presidents can say they punched Vince McMahon.
Yeah, or shaved his head.
Or tried stabbing him with a pen.
Yeah.
If we're going for like wrestling, just because of how creative some of his can be, probably CM Punk, because he would probably make me think.
Okay.
And Chicago is not that far from Michigan.
Yeah.
We'd probably incorporate a lot of Detroit versus Chicago type things, even though I'm not from Detroit. Shut up, everybody in Michigan does it.
Yeah.
But we'd probably incorporate a lot of that. If we're going as far as like over in other territories, I'd probably go to Jerry or the Great Muta, just because they're really old and still doing it. If we want to throw a curveball and do someone not in wrestling, I'd probably go Gordon Ramsay, just because how creative he is with insults.
Gordon Ramsay. I fucking love him, dude. That's funny.
Like, if Gordon Ramsay and me did a promo and he came at me with bread, I'd probably have to toast his ass and make him the idiot sandwich.
You thought of that one. I like that.
I was actually on the fly.
I like that. That's funny. What do you hope the audience takes away from your performance?
What I really hope that they take from it, because with my walk through life and all that, I mean, yeah, I didn't have the worst childhood growing up. I didn't have the best, but I'm also not the biggest. I'm also not the shortest.
Yeah.
Anybody, whether it be an average build, whether you have problems breathing, whether you have a family where you have to be very involved in their life because this person has a disability, this person needs you doing this, it can be done. It might be hard, and there might be times where you are going to want to quit, and there's going to be times where you just sit there slowly stewing and reflecting, and you're going to be like, fuck, it's not worth it. But after you get through that day or two in the hump, you'll sit back and you'll laugh. Like every once in a while, I kind of take this from Bill Burr. As I've gotten mature and stuff like that, like if I still to this day have like a moment where I'm in the wrong, now I can look at it like, I want to be in a dick back there, or maybe I probably should have got punched.
Yeah.
But anybody, whether it's your disability, whether you're a slow learner, because I'm a slow learner. At my regular job, I have to get shown how to do stuff visually a good one or two times. They might have to tell me, but once they do that, I hit the ground running. There's been times where I've worked a week or two where we've had no scrap parts. I'm one of the reasons why we have such good numbers on my line. And for the longest time, I thought I was just this chunky kid with asthma who was kind of nerdy, but not nerdy like smart, but I really like comic books. And I turned that around. I slowly started doing sports, slowly started reading more, and slowly started applying myself, and sometimes having to stop and think, yeah, compared to here, this might feel good right now, but overall, it's not right.
Well, hey, man. So one thing, I do try to give like a little 10-minute warning, not to say, hey, hurry up with your questions. I make sure to reiterate that just so when I drop the thank you for coming on, you're not like, oh. So, do you think, sorry. What would you be doing if you were not wrestling? Sorry, I was trying to find my place.
If I was not wrestling professionally, I probably, because of my work schedule and working first shift, I would probably go back to what I was saying that I did in the beginning, and I would probably start coaching youth wrestling a little bit more. That way I could see some of my students go to like districts, states, and stuff like that, because it does feel good being able to see that, because I got taken out because of a concussion my senior year. I didn't get to go to regionals and states. So when I get to see other people do it and I can live vicariously through there, I'm like a proud dad and a really proud coach. And I'm like, that's my boy, even though it's not my boy.
Yeah, man, that's awesome. So before my wrap up questions, I want to say, firstly, thank you for coming on. It's been great. I've had a blast. I've loved your story. And thank you. I mean, I cannot say thank you enough. If you could have any superpower in the world, what would it be?
Growing up as a kid, everybody wants to be able to be really fast. Everybody wants to be really strong. Some of us want to be invisible. That way, we don't get seen by our parents and stuff. One thing, and this goes back to growing and maturing and stuff. One thing, and a lot of people probably don't wish for this to be a superpower, but if I could make this a thing, my power would be to create more time. Because my aunt, who passed a couple years back, she had really bad dementia, and I was working still about 8 hours or so, typical American average stuff, and we'd go over there, help her out, and because I looked so much like my dad, she didn't really know Brandon. She just she saw me and saw like little Teddy and stuff. Yeah. So I did all that and never really so I look at it like maybe if I had more time. Same thing with my grandpa, because when my grandpa Jim passed, I was working on getting a trailer. It was a handyman special. I had to do a lot of repairs. I had to work a lot of overtime, and he had fluid on as long as he was coming back from cancer. So in all honesty, I would probably have to make a power and for there to be more time, because at the end of the day, in this year, we only get 365. In this day, we only get 24 hours, and in this minute, we only get 60 seconds.
So one thing that I ask every single guest at the end, if there's anything that I didn't ask or that I should have. So is there anything you would like to share that I might have missed?
No, you covered most of it. I loved the energy. I love the authenticity and stuff. It was not disrespectful in the least. I've had plenty of fans, especially at certain festivals, where And some of it's flattering, some of it's not. You know, some of them, it'd be people where they're like, hey, you're cute. Some of them, they're, have a couple of drinks and they just ask you random questions like, hey, what do you think is the best boots?
Yeah.
So everything felt like it was genuine, came straight from the heart, honesty and all that.
Thank you.
Kind of gave off energy of like when I was in the company and started asking, bigger name stuff. When I first started, I was nervous as hell to ask about people because people would be like, oh, you don't want to be a mark. You don't want to mark out. They're going to look at you as lesser. Now, I mean, in the entertainment industry, whether it be wrestling, music, stand-up, so many of our brothers and sisters, die and stuff. That's one reason why I don't drink. That's another reason why I try not to take any pills. I honestly, it's probably been about 2 years since I've had an aspirin.
Awesome. One thing I forgot to ask, I fucked up here. Well, I didn't fuck up, so I'm not going to ask. My wrap-up question will come after this. My favorite wrestler of all time is The Undertaker. Not just because everybody loves The Undertaker. I watched him in WWE as me and Mark, and I see his progression into like the purple gloved Undertaker.
Mm-hmm.
I see his progression.
Going from Brother Love to Paul Bear and all that. Badass.
So my question is, who is your favorite wrestler of all time? All time.
That's kind of a tricky question because when I was younger, when I was really young, because being born in the 90s, sometimes we didn't have cable. Sometimes I'd have to go back and watch tapes.
Yep.
When I was really young, it was, Hulk Hogan, Ultimate Warrior, Macho Man. As I got older and could remember some of it, like when you become like a toddler to young kid, you start to actually be able to remember, like, I did this yesterday.
I can't wait to see him.
Like when I got to about there, it was the Hardy Boys, Edge, the Dudleys, couple other people like Chris Jericho. Because again, I'm not very big. I'm like 210, sometimes 220, depending on if I've had a feast or two that week. And then without the boots, I'm like 5'8". So seeing people that can do that, not being very big and still being able to be like going for the big titles and stuff, that's one of the reasons why I liked it. Now as an adult, probably have to say Will Ospreay, Kenny Omega. If we're going WWE, probably Cody and Roman.
Okay, right.
Roman, just because I didn't want to like him at first, because WWE was pushing him down our throat, and now it's just like,
now
you know what? You're cool.
Yeah, now he's all right.
You treat him like that one guy that's been around a while. You're just like,
it's funny that you said the Hardys and CM Punk. You said you wanted to do a promo with. I kind of got that vibe after watching some of your stuff, like seeing what the little bit I did, like YouTube, Facebook. You gave me that vibe, not like feeling, just like if you were to put in a category, I would put you with them, just like off the top of my head, which isn't an insult. That is probably my favorite category of people, the ECW, the high flyers. Like that's my favorite category. Or at least the most entertaining to watch, period. Like, I mean.
Oh, yeah, especially luchadors, because when I grew up, I had to be on Adderall. I was like, is that one medicine? It's not Ritalin, the one that came out. And, like, a lot of stuff couldn't keep my attention, and that's right around the time I watched Rey Mysterio, and I'm like, okay, that's cool.
Yeah, you'll keep my attention. All right, so my final wrap-up question is, what is your definition of success?
My definition of success would have to be starting from something and slowly building it. By all means, I'm not big. There's other people around me that are bigger, but it also comes from your perspective and stuff. As far as like my actual job, when I first started out, I was making a minimum wage about like $7. Now I make almost triple that.
Perfect.
So again, it comes with success and progress. Yep. Rome wasn't built in a day. You might be making $5 today. Within a month or a year, you could be making 10. Yep. Within another, you could be making et cetera, et cetera. Yep. Same, and a lot of companies do that. Like I'm actually coming up on an anniversary in like a year or so. I believe my vacation time will be double.
Perfect.
I just go up and do what I'm told and just try and have the most productive, cheery day. I've been told by a couple people, and I don't take it as an insult or anything, because I know by all means I'm not the smartest guy. I never get called when people need IT stuff or something that they misread from a book or something. Yeah. But I've been told by the last 2-3 jobs I've had that one of the reasons why we hire you, because even if we know it's a shitty day, you come in, even if you know it's a shitty day, come in and you go do what you're told, you smile, and even if you see other people mad, you still try and get them to fucking smile, because we're going to be here till a certain time. Do you want to make this day long like a stretch pancake, or do you want to make it short and sweet like a gumdrop?
So Katie normally asks this question, but I'm still going to ask it for her. If there was one word, just one single word to describe your whole entire journey, what would it be?
One word.
We've had water, we've had honor. Just any one word that you can think of.
See, one word makes it kind of hard. The whole water thing, I was gonna go a Bruce Lee route. This is gonna kind of come with a definition, but putty.
Putty. Okay.
Putty, because sometimes you're given a certain thing, and just like putty and Play-Doh, you got a mold, and you got to fit that mold, and you got to get in where you fit in.
Yeah.
Like my job, it's not the best job in the world, but I do a damn good job at it. I make about 20-something bucks an hour, close to it.
Yeah.
A lot of people, and again, it's not the best, it's not the most amount of money in the world, but when I started out, I was making fries and burgers for $7. Now I'm getting paid like triple about the amount when I first started working.
Yeah.
So again, putty, you just gotta hold your shape, stay in there, and get in where you fit in.
Right on, dude. So perfect. This is actually perfect timing. My battery just died on the camera, so this was perfect timing. They can still hear us. But so this week is from Westside Furniture Consignment Emporium for $30. They are a consignment store that specializes in the resale of upscale quality, gently used furniture, home decor, antiques, collectibles, silver, porcelain, art, and just nostalgia from homes and businesses just like yours. They carry brand names such as Ethan Allen, Roy Hill, Henry Don, Drexel Heritage, Lazy Boy, along with vintage and MCM pieces. Their phone number is 517-315-4094, or you can visit them at 1511 West Morrell Street, Jackson, Michigan, 49203. There you go, dude.
Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you for coming on, man. It was
Thank
a
you for having
pleasure.
me.
Before we get out of here, I got a paint marker. I was hoping you would sign the table.
Yep, not a problem.
You're awesome, dude. I appreciate it. Yeah, dude.